All right. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Great Outside Podcast. I am here with Hannah Stonehouse Hudson, who is actually a new North Dakota resident, I believe, as about 3, 4 months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
A month and a half.
Month and a half. Wow.
Like
Well,
not even maybe that.
well, welcome to the great state of North Dakota. We sure are lucky to have you here, and I know you've been talking about this for quite some time since I've known you and our friendships developed. That you've always wanted to make the move here to North Dakota, whether it was Devil's Lake or anywhere in between there.
Yes, yes. That is, I fell in love with North Dakota, especially Devil's Lake, in 2012. And 2 years ago, I was here for speaking at a conference in Fargo for the North Dakota Tourism Association. And I was like, I'm going to live in Fargo or North Dakota someday. And like 2 years later, I'm here.
That is wonderful, wonderful. No,
Yeah.
we're lucky to have you here, and I don't care whether it's the east part of the state, west part of the state, anywhere in North Dakota. I think is just a great place to live.
Yes. Yes. I've fallen in love with it. So I decided I would arrive.
So going forward to that, 2012, you made your first trip out to Devil's Lake and kind of had it set in your mind that you wanted to move out here. I know
Yes.
you've visited Devil's Lake many times in between there. First off, I would like to just kind of get a little background history on you. I know you're very active in the outdoors. I know there's a couple different groups you work with, especially with women anglers and stuff like that. So I would just kind of like to get a little history on that and your involvement in ice fishing and open water fishing and everything that kind of has that realm.
Okay. Well, it's what's crazy is I did not grow up in a family that hunted or fished. We talk about recruiting women into the outdoors. I am one of those women. So we kayaked, we canoed, we hiked when I was growing up, but it wasn't anti-hunting or fishing. That just wasn't what we did. And when I went to college at UW-Madison in Wisconsin, and I took a class on folklore. And I would drive to this class, and every day I would see these guys out on the ice, like sitting on buckets on their like lunch hour with their camel hair coats on and their suit, like literally their suits. And I was fascinated by it. So for the class, I actually did a paper on the folklore of ice fishing because I was just like fascinated by it. I'm from Illinois originally. I don't admit that to everyone. But in Illinois, in central Illinois, you stay off the ice. And so I was just fascinated by it. I was like, I want to try that. And that was like 98, 99. And in the meantime, I graduated from school there and I discovered fly fishing because I had always been fascinated by that as well and never had a chance to learn it. So I went and I taught myself how to fly fish. So in 2004, I was in a little town called Bayfield, Wisconsin. The night before I was supposed to actually go back to see my parents down in Madison, about 7 hours south of there, 6 hours south. And I kept hearing about this guy while I was there. I was there for about 3 weeks in Bayfield. And I kept hearing that I needed to meet Jimmy the cop. But he was never around because he was either fishing or he was on duty. So I used to speed through town in those 3 weeks trying to get pulled over. Like
Oh, that is good.
literally trying to get pulled over by this guy because for some reason I knew I needed to meet him. So the night before I was supposed to leave to go back to my parents, this guy walks up and I knew immediately I was going to marry him. And it was Jimmy the cop who within 5 seconds, it felt like talking. We started talking about fishing and he said, "You like to fish?" And his eyes got absolutely huge. And a month later, I bought him a Smokercraft Malentia, like not a cheap one, a brand new 2004 Smokercraft. And my mother called me screeching. She couldn't believe I'd bought some boy a boat. And I called that our wedding date, but we actually got married about a year later. And so I dropped everything, moved to Bayfield, Wisconsin, and helped my husband build his guide service. So he took me ice fishing for the first time in December of 2004, end of November, December of 2004. And I absolutely fell in love with ice fishing. I just became, not for lack of a better word, hooked, as much as I hate using that. But so he, on Lake Superior, he was born and raised Red Cliff Reservation. His grandpa taught him to fish. His relatives taught him to fish. And so he created this guide service and taught me all about the lake and Lake Superior. So I am extremely spoiled and learned from a guy who really was an amazing angler. And he taught me all about it. And I ended up I would ice fish a lot and really loved it, but I actually grew a photography business and ended up being behind the camera a lot. So there's not many pictures of me ice fishing until about 2014. It's because I was always behind the camera, and I did a lot of work for Clam, for Vexlar, for Jiffy, for Strike Master, all different companies, and had a lot of fun doing it. But I spent a lot of time behind the camera. As you know, you do the same thing. Like there's a lot of the time where you're behind the camera and can't actually fish.
Yep.
So I got to ice fish, and I got to learn to ice fish from Jim. And the first time I ever went to Devil's Lake was in 2012, that's what my background is. This is what I use for my Zoom background, because my family lives all over the world, and my cousins live in Melbourne, Australia. And I had told them that I had moved to North Dakota, and they were like, "Why did you move to North Dakota?" So we had a family Zoom call on Easter, and I put up the Devil's Lake as my background to be like, it's ice. And they think I'm crazy how much I love to ice fish. They're like, we have no idea where you came from. My mother doesn't know where I came from. She's like, nobody in our family likes to do these things. But so that's why I had the background at Devil's Lake. So that was 2012, and we were filming a show for the Next Bite. So it was Jim, myself, Gary Parsons, Keith Kavayetz, Jason Mitchell was on it. There was a bunch of people on it. And so I absolutely fell in love with Devil's Lake. I fell in love with North Dakota. I remember driving at a high rate of speed down the highway and like looking around going, oh, this is so cool. It's just flat, beautiful. The sunsets were amazing. And then when we were fishing, and I got like fishing over structure is one of my favorite things to do, just seeing how fish behave, where they are, what things are around. And Devil's Lake for that is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Like you have like barns and stuff. I mean, it's good for people like me who have massive ADD and just want to go see cool stuff. So that's when I first fell in love with Devil's Lake. We shot a show there for the Next Bite. I got some great photos, and I had always wanted to return. And in 2013, my husband passed away unexpectedly. He was guiding clients on Lake Superior, and his snowmobile went through, and he did pass away while he was ice fishing. And I knew it was an accident, and I knew that I had been given this amazing knowledge about ice fishing, about Lake Superior. And I decided that I was going to put down my camera, and except for various instances, and I was going to use the knowledge that he gave me to ice fish as much as I could. And so I have been traveling all over the place during projects, fishing as much as I can, teaching people to really embrace life, that life is short, and go fish, be outside, do really cool things. So that's how I fell in love with ice fishing. And now really that's all I do.
That is very fascinating, and I love that story. And I know, thinking to a lot of youngsters, women, even guys, like the biggest thing, like you said, it's not so much anti-hunting or fishing. It's just that barrier of you don't grow up in the outdoors, so you don't have the accessibility to some of the stuff that the people that get that tradition passed on. So it's something you don't see. And I know a lot of these movements and stuff going on right now to help get people introduced into whether it's ice fishing or open water fishing or fly fishing is really, really neat. And I'm really curious how you self-taught yourself to fly fish, because I have a fly rod and I've been practicing on bluegills the last couple summers. And I swear every fourth, fifth cast, I'm catching a tree or hooking the dock or, the rocks in the shore. Like that is a tough thing to learn. So
it's very difficult to learn, and I spent a lot of time cussing. So, and I fell in love with fly fishing for muskie, which is one of my favorite things to do in the whole world. And they like to flip me off and say no. So
we were up in Alaska back in beginning of July, and we were on the up in King Salmon, the Naknek River, and we were fishing for sockeyes, and that was the most challenging fly fishing. Like you literally have a split shot on your line with a bare hook, and you're trying to get these as they're swimming upstream, and they're just swimming by you by the thousands, and you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? I can't get them. But when you do hook a fish like that, whether it's 8-10 pounds on a fly rod, you better hold on. It's the ride of your life. I can get why people want to catch fish with a fly rod, especially muskie.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. I've caught steelhead. I've caught all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's just a lot of fun. It's good for people who like adrenaline, like myself.
Yes, and I know a few guys in Devil's Lake have started to do this in the spring with the pike and walleye, and I think it's an art that is definitely going to be something up and coming in the next couple of years, where everyone's trying to do something different. I want to say fly fishing in the walleye world might be a new thing that we'll start to see a little more.
Oh yeah, I've caught a couple walleye on a fly rod, and I'm hoping to do that this spring and summer. I haven't specifically targeted them. However, I have a feeling that I might have to go do that, especially with what's going on right now. I have to get outside or else I'm going to lose my mind.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of the reason we started doing this podcast. For those that haven't listened to the previous ones we've done, we're just up here in Devil's Lake trying to, get people in a mind frame to think about just, the outdoors. And I know in previous podcasts, I've talked to people about how I probably wouldn't be the person I am without the outdoors. I mean, it's even just, taking a stroll along the river, going for a couple hour hike or doing a little shed hunting. It just puts your mind back at ease and kind of gives you that mental reset that we're so often needing in times like this. I know you mentioned the Life is Short movement. Is that something you have started recently? I know I've seen a little bit on that on social media, and I was kind of curious to learn a little bit more on that, because people always tell me I'm a pretty optimistic person. I feel like this is something that would be right up my alley.
Oh yeah, definitely. So there's a couple things that over the past 7 years since my husband passed away, I have met all kinds of interesting people with interesting stories who had crazy, very good and very bad things happen in their lives. And they decided to embrace the fact that life is short and that you should go find some sort of adventure. Whether it's something that just pushes your limits, it's travel, it's fishing, it's learning a new skill, whatever it is, life is too short to just sit back and take it. You should go do interesting things, meet interesting people. So last fall, I decided to start this thing called the Life is Short movement. And actually our first road trip was with Pat Kelmerton and everybody from Wolfpack Adventures. And we went from the St. Paul Ice Show, fished Devil's Lake with you guys. Didn't catch a whole lot of fish because it was really freaking cold, which is fine, whatever. It's about the adventure. And then we went to the Fargo Ice Show, which is where I decided I was going to move to Fargo. Literally, I looked for jobs in the hotel room in Fargo. But I digress. So the lifeisshortmovement.com is my site where I talk about some of the things that happen when you really embrace that. The other thing I talk about is what are the lessons you learned. So we're all given lessons from people who surround us who passed on. I talked about Jim and the fact that he taught me about Lake Superior. He taught me about ice fishing. So you don't have to forget, just because a person is gone, you don't have to get rid of that information. You're given that in order to pass it on. And we talked about teaching women and kids to fish. One of the most amazing things that I love to do is teach other people about the outdoors. The outdoors saved me. The outdoors saved my life. The outdoors keeps me sane. And so whether it's with Women on Ice, which is the program that I do with Barb Carey, who started that, and I'm hoping at some point we'll get to Devil's Lake for one of our trips. But it's teaching women about ice fishing, because a lot of the time women are interested in ice fishing or hunting or any of these things, but they don't feel like they have someone who can teach them how to do it, or they're intimidated. And they shouldn't be, because there's many of us, like myself, I know about fish structure and I know about where fish are, but hell if I know what line to use, or like that's not what, I don't care. I just want to catch fish. So there's other women who are better at those things, and I can look to them for a resource. And so we have Women on Ice, where we have this collective knowledge. Women Anglers in Minnesota, which is an amazing organization. Wisconsin Women Fish. It's these groups that we share knowledge. We're all very good at something, and we share that knowledge. And I was very lucky to have that. So I was taught these things, and I don't only just teach women to fish and work with women. There's all these youth organizations. One of them is called Hooked on Hardwater. So, and that one is actually in Rapid City, South Dakota. And that is where I really, truly discovered on this trip that I had been given knowledge by a guy who was raised by an awesome single mom, who I love to call a friend now, who was taught to fish by her, by his grandpa, by the local warden who basically adopted Jim. And they taught him how to fish. So then he taught me. And then 3 years ago, I was there as an ice fishing pro, which makes me laugh. And you get hooked up with a kid every time. That every pro gets hooked up with a kid to fish at this event. And this kid walks up to me and says, "Hi, I hear you're going to teach me to fish." And I am so intimidated by this 7-year-old. It's ridiculous. He might have been 8. I couldn't tell. But he's like, "So they told me that you would keep me safe." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, I've been really scared to go ice fishing because I know it can be dangerous." And I'm like, okay, this kid has been sent to me for a reason. So we start talking. I said, what's your name?" "It's James." I said, "Oh, I knew someone named James who loved to ice fish." And I said, "Wait a minute. When's your birthday?" "January 26th. January 26th is the day that Jim had passed away." So I'm talking to this really cool kid who is afraid, who has decided that he's going to talk to me about his fears, but he really wants to go ice fishing. And I realized this kid has been given to me for a reason. So the next day, I take him out on the ice, and I'm teaching him how to use the Bexler. I'm teaching him all of this really cool stuff that my husband taught me, because other people took time in their life to teach him. And I am having a blast. And at that moment, I realized that we may not know it in the moment when we're being taught something that we're going to teach someone else, but we should always go through life going, okay, these people were in our lives for a reason. They were in it for a short time. What's the knowledge that I can take from them to pass on to other people? And it may not be, you might not know it at the time that that's going to happen, but we can miss people and want them to be in our lives, but they leave. So what have we been given to pass on to other people? And for me, that's been the outdoors, especially ice fishing, because I truly believe it's extremely important to mental health to be outside. It's very important for kids to be able to be outside and having fun and not stuck in front of a device. And it's really important for women to get together and not feel intimidated like they can't ask, because we are at our best when we're helping others. So I've had all these really interesting things happen in my life, and I've been really blessed with people who've shown me the way. And now I'm really excited to help others, but also at the same time learn. So that is the long explanation of the Life is Short movement.
Oh, that is great. That story just kind of put chills up my back. And I think every hair on my back just stood up saying that his birthday was the same day that the accident happened with Jim. So no, that was great. It made me think about a little bit with that Hooked on Hardwater, something similar, not quite similar, but what we do in Devil's Lake, we have, and maybe you heard of our Shiver Fest we have up here in February, and we have a kids ice fishing tournament that our local fire department, the tourism, we have a few sponsors that help us with this event every year. And it's a great tool because we get the fire department out there and they drill probably 500 holes or so, 300 to 500. And for $10, anyone under the age of 16 can get ice fishing ticket, and they come in, they get a starter pack, they get a rod and reel, they get some jigs, they get a couple different things, they get a minnow scooper, minnow bucket, they get entered into a couple different drawings. But it's just a great way for a lot of kids that don't have the ability to get outside on the ice in the winter, even though they have this resource right out their back door. And I think it's a good way to give them that entry into there. And even talking about passing it on, I mean, I've learned this. Open water fishing, there's a lot to learn, but I think ice fishing has so much more technicalities that go to it, whether it's, why aren't we moving and why are we waiting? You know, how do we attack when we can only fish a 10-inch, 8-inch hole here? We can't fan cast around. And so even sometimes it seems like the simplest of things that we as fishermen think in our head that you should know that, but yet there's a ton of people that you say something, they're like, I never even thought of it that way. And so I think passing it on and just always learning and always teaching is part of our industry as a whole.
Yeah. And I think that might be why I have been so happy in the industry, is because it is very collaborative and there's so many different ways to do so many things, that you can always learn something, and that suits my brain.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you're talking about I want to say you had the Women Anglers of Minnesota. What was the Woman on Ice? Was that the other one?
Yep.
You were saying is that something you guys do yearly? Is there I think, you do, was it Mille Lacs? No, not Mille Lacs. Where were you guys at this year?
Minnetonka.
Okay.
So we've done Lake of the Woods, Otter Tail County, Mille Lacs, Minnetonka, Lake Superior. And I really want to go to Devil's Lake at some point. I may just lead a trip without them, because now I live here and I can.
Yep.
So the two women's groups are Women Anglers of Minnesota and Wisconsin Women Fish. And then there's one in Ontario, which there's the three, those are the three. But all three of us have members from all over. And then Women on Ice is actually a yearly media event. So every year we pick a spot to go, and we basically create positive images of women fishing, whether it's for catalogs, billboards, magazines, whatever it is. And we've been in USA Today, we've been in Country Woman, like all over the place. We had stuff in Gander Mountain when Gander Mountain was around, and basically all over the place. So it became originally just a small project to take photos of positive images of women ice fishing, and it's grown into something way bigger. So that's been a lot of fun for me.
Oh, that is great. No, yeah. I think there might be a possibility in the future where we'll have you guys up here in Devil's Lake, and I think that'd be a lot of fun. It's great when you get a lot of people, a lot of like-minded people, and especially when it's something newer and all that it's innovative. I think that would be a win-win for all in that department.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. I'm very much I'm always sad when the ice goes out. If I could be ice all the time, or like some fallish weather and then ice all the time, I'm one of those crazy people. But I'm really excited to be so much closer to Devil's Lake this winter. It's gonna be awesome.
Heck, you're what, 2.5, 3 hours away now, so you can make day trips up there if you really want to. And I can just get in my car. I call it the Ice Fishing GTI. And I can just keep going. It's always like 20 trucks and then my little Volkswagen GTI with snow tires on it. And I'm notorious for going on Red Lake, because I can get on the access there, and I'll have the sunroof open and music blasting, and they'll know it's my car because I'm just sweeping around the curves. Oh, that's funny. So this winter, you're saying if I see a Volkswagen GTI cruising around the ice on Devil's Lake, it's more than likely going to be you.
It probably will be me. And the sunroof will be open and the heated seats will be on. So it'll be perfect.
That is making the most of it right there. That is truly a life is short. Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. And so I can't go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, I just basically do what I want and then just go with it.
As long as you can fit a couple long rods in there, so when you drive up and you can get a little shore fishing in, and you're golden and set. So 2012 was the first time you came. Yes. How roughly on your hand, how many times do you think you've been to Devil's Lake in the last 8 years now?
4 or 5, not as much as I'd like. I went, there was Ice Team University was there, I think. And then I did a couple photo shoots there. Another show, but not as much as I would like. So, and I've never been there for open water. I've only been there for ice fishing.
Well, I think that's going to change here sometime in the near future.
Yes, I think we need another Wolfpack Life is Short movement.
Oh, absolutely. That was a fun trip. And for those that are listening in right now, you can go to our YouTube channel, and we have actually, I want to say it was a 3-part series we did on that. We called it Have Boots, Will Travel.
Yeah.
And that was, like you said, we went from the St. Paul Ice Show, which we spent 3.5, 4 days there, talked ice fishing, and drove back up to Devil's Lake and spent 2.5, 3 days wandering around the early ice bite. And our whole premise of that show was to prove to people that, you know what, sometimes it just take a step back, and whatever you can throw in your sled, and you can hike in, whether it's
Yep.
50 yards or half mile or a mile from shore, you can still get on good fishing. And it was brutally cold those first couple of days. I remember we walked out and set the shelters out, and Pat and a couple of the other guys went and drilled holes and kind of hopped around outside, and we sat inside in the tent and didn't really venture too far. And I had the camera, and it was a chilly one.
Yes, it was definitely cold, and it was really funny because I have been so used to being the photographer for so long for ice fishing stuff that I felt really bad for you.
I think I remember
And I was just sort of like, I'm not in charge.
I think I remember at one time you're like, I don't even know what to do because I'm not the one with the camera in my hand. I get to just fish.
Yeah, I was like, I get to fish, except there's no fish. So, I'll take photos with my phone, and then it died.
Oh no, that was a fun trip. And I mean,
Yeah.
that just talking with a lot of people on different outdoor stories. I mean, that's most of the reason I do the hunting and fishing that I do is right there. It's just the memories like that. I mean, catching a fish is great and it's a nice bonus, but at the end of the day, if you're out there with good company, you're having a good time, the camaraderie, the stories you tell, like, you know, how many times you sit around a campfire and you can reminisce on these, or sit around having a shore lunch. Just it's truly remarkable what the outdoors does.
Oh yeah. It has given me the most amazing friendships. Fishing is the whole fishing industry, the whole fishing world. Those are my people. Those are where my friendships come from. That's where I call the ice fishing season social season, because you get to just stand around and talk to each other while you're fishing. And that's the best part of it.
It really is. And like when we go to these shows, like the St. Paul Ice Fishing Show, the Fargo Show, if we go to anywhere, as you can hear my dog barking in the background there.
Stewie is over here trying to get on camera.
They're just a part of the family. But anywhere,
Exactly.
like the Madison Show, all these shows, it's just like a family reunion when you go to them, because you see people. You know, sometimes it's only once a year, sometimes it's 3-4 different shows you see them, and it's just like a big family gathering again. And I think it does build some really amazing friendships and relationships in this industry.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. These are my people.
And I know you are also a really renowned photographer, and I believe you had a photo in which, you know, it's kind of maybe a little bit off topic from the outdoors, but I just wanted to kind of see the story. I remember there was a dog, I want to say, was it in Lake Superior, that you had photographed, and it became pretty popular. And I think that whole story was a pretty unique and interesting thing to hear about.
So that's what was crazy. So I had shortly after my first trip to Devil's Lake, I had been a wedding photographer for a very long time. And I had told Jim, I was like, I am so burnt out from weddings. I want to take photos of dogs for the rest of my life. And he just laughed at me. He's like, yeah, right. Okay. Whatever, lady. Because we lived in a town of like 250 people, 300 tops. It's like something really weird will have to happen in order for you to take photos of dogs for the rest of your life. And in late July 2012, I took a photo of a gentleman and his dog in Lake Superior, where the dog was 18 years old, 17 years old, and would fall asleep in his arms every night in Lake Superior. He would get him in the water and it would soothe his arthritis, the dog's arthritis. And it ended up being, the Huffington Post called it at the time the most viral photo of all time. And it was crazy. My life blew up. The gentleman I took photos of didn't have internet, so I was the person who was basically the go-between. And my voicemail would fill up like 4 or 5 times a day. People would drive 8 or 9 hours and walk into my house without knocking, looking for this guy. And I was on Good Morning America, the Today Show, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I ended up taking photos of dogs for the rest of my life. I still take photos of dogs. I'm actually really excited this fall. I love doing hunting dog photos. And I have a bunch of clients who are up in northern Minnesota, and they just found out that I've moved up here. So I have a bunch of like grouse and woodcock sessions, and hopefully I'll get out and do some pheasant stuff with some dogs, some hunters this fall too. So yes, it was crazy. We ended up raising $80,000 for a nonprofit that ended up buying a bunch of stuff for animal shelters. it was crazy, and really good things happened from it. And then I, for a long time now, well, I guess it's 8 years now, I speak to people about handling the internet in tragic circumstances, in conflict, which we're dealing with right now. But really, because that photo and the craziness that happened with that, and then my husband passing away shortly after that, and that going viral as well. So I had a crazy amount of knowledge from two very different life events that I ended up turning into a speaking career, so I could really help people deal with the internet when bad things happen. And I've been doing a little bit of speaking now just on the internet, helping some organizations deal with what's going on now. But it's definitely an interesting time, which is really why I am very glad to be where I am.
Yes, and that's wonderful that you guys were able to raise about $80,000 for a nonprofit.
Yeah.
You know, that speaks volumes. And I believe that was I want to say the breakout session you did at the tourism conference 2 years ago in Fargo was on that, and I was in attendance for that one. And
Yeah.
I know one of them that was either the same or similar at the Aglow conference as well. And I'm going to give you a little plug here for anyone that has the opportunity to listen to Hannah. It's definitely worth your time. It was very well received, and I think it was very well worth the time to sit down and listen to it. You can learn so much from it, and with social media these days, things can take a turn one direction or the other so quickly, and you have a great way to kind of implement plans and lay things out and how to handle situations. And I definitely would say anyone listening that has the opportunity to go to one of Hannah's speaking seminars or listen in on a virtual one, definitely do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that immensely.
Absolutely. No, it was great. And I want to say there wasn't very many dry eyes by the end of it either, because it's a very touching thing, but it's also very informative.
Thank you. I want people to be prepared and to be able to deal with life when something weird happens. So
Absolutely. So I also want to kind of see if you had any interesting, unique, funny stories from a couple of your travels up to Devil's Lake that you could remember off the top of your head. I know traveling with Pat Kelmerton, there's probably quite a few. I want to say you guys had a little thing going this year with the Life is Short movement. I want to say, I forget, something with Hannah, because you guys always had to stop at coffee shops wherever you guys were.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm notorious for needing caffeine, massive amounts of caffeine. And we were with Pat and his dad. And I ended up making them drive like 10 miles out of the way for coffee. And I made them stop like every day for caffeine. But it's really the only way that I can function. And I am it's hard to be around me if I haven't had coffee. So I'm notorious for walking around in my ice fishing gear and having iced coffee at the same time. And it'll be like -30. They're working on a short documentary about me, which I think is hilarious that I'm even saying that. And they were filming me a couple of years ago. And it was -20, and I had an iced coffee in my hand, which is also in this, by the way. And I'm walking down the street sipping iced coffee, and then getting on a snowmobile with a glove with an iced coffee going, and literally it never left my hand. So I have to have iced coffee, even while ice fishing in -30.
Oh, I love it. I'm a big coffee connoisseur, and I know, I don't drink a lot of iced coffee in the winter. I will when it's about 80, 90 degrees, which 90 degrees in North Dakota is maybe once or twice this summer, but I love coffee, and I'm with you on that 100%. Did you happen to sneak in any of the coffee shops in Devil's Lake when you were up this last winter?
Oh, no, I was super bummed. Super bummed. I tried to, because we went to the hardware store, and then there's coffee shop down the street, or down the little.
Yes.
But I was told that we needed to move quickly.
It's coffee or fishing.
Yeah.
The fish are waiting for us, so we will get coffee later.
And I was like, okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, I know we've got a couple of unique shops in Devil's Lake. We've got the one you're referring to there right at the City Plaza where Ace Hardware is Dunn Brothers.
Yes.
And then we've got the Liquid Bean downtown. We've got North Dakota Coffee Connection drive-through. We have Crossroads Coffee. So yeah, there's quite a few spots in there. So when you are traveling up to Devil's Lake in the next couple of years here, whether it's wintertime, summertime, there'll be a couple places you're going to have to put on your list to check out when you do swing through.
Oh, yes, I will definitely. I'm hoping to be there sooner rather than later.
I
We'll
hope
see
so
what
too.
happens. Yes.
No, I do too. I was going to touch base here and see if there was anything else that anything else you could think of offhand that maybe some listeners would find interesting to learn about, or.
I can't think. That's horrible. I can't think of it. I feel really dumb right now.
Oh, don't feel that way. I think all of our minds, by the time this is all done, we're going to all be ready for like 3 weeks of fishing just nonstop to get back to normalcy.
Yes, I'm like, I'm desperate for water time. So hopefully I can find something good.
Water and camping.
Yes. I just need to go like look at fish playing in the water. That's basically what I need to do.
And seeing pictures of fish being caught right now just gets me antsy, and I want to be out there catching and
twitch, twitch, twitch.
Yep.
That is me.
Oh, but it's all good stuff.
Yes, for sure. Yes. But I can't think of anything else. I feel really bad. Sorry.
Nope, that is quite
I've been writing all day.
That's okay. I've been working on some videos, and this was a nice little thing to end the day with. So, like I said, we'll be having this air here soon. And anyone following in, I suggest following Hannah on social media because she keeps some pretty good entertaining things on there. I like your ice cream comments for breakfast and having making a full pot of coffee at 5:30 and wasn't a great I always get a good chuckle out of everything you have on Facebook, and
I do not make the best food choices. Like, I live by myself. I'm basically ridiculous. I eat ice cream directly from the container, and I just spray whipped cream directly in my mouth rather than taking the step of putting it in a bowl, because I don't have to deal with anyone in dishes. I just take care of myself.
Hey, I don't see anything wrong with that. Less dishes, less chance for that ice cream to fall off your spoon when it's going into a bowl and fall on the floor or wherever it may end up. So I like your style, Hannah.
I'm being responsible with water usage. Less dishes.
I love it. I love it. Well, if there's nothing else to add, we'll probably just kind of wrap up here. And everyone, again, I want to thank Hannah here, Hannah Stonehouse Hudson, for joining me on Zoom today for our podcast for The Great Outside. Like I said, follow her on social media. She is hilarious. She is very well spoken. Like I said, if you get the opportunity to take in any of her seminar classes, definitely do it. You won't regret it. I know I never regretted it. And if I have the opportunity to attend another one, Hannah, I definitely will be.
Well, thank you very much.
And hopefully it won't be long, and we'll be fishing on the shores of Devil's Lake and maybe having a nice little shore lunch and fresh walleye.
Sounds delicious.
So thanks again for joining me, Hannah. I really appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe down there in Fargo, and we'll be thinking about you up here in Devil's Lake.
Thank you. See you soon.
Thanks, Hannah.